YouTube, it's Morgan, aka The Mountaineer. Today I want to do a tribute video. Today marks the 9-month anniversary since my Uncle Dan died. He was my mom's younger brother, and he died very suddenly and unexpectedly, like I say, 9 months ago, at the age of 60. And he was a big-time cigar smoker, whiskey lover, especially Scotch. If it wasn't the fact that it's the morning, I'd probably be having a Bruichladdich Port Charlotte. His favorite whiskey was Bruichladdich 10, which I don't have, but since it's the morning, I'm not gonna mess with that. But you see, I don't have a pipe. I'm not smoking a pipe yet, and I wanted to show you guys. This is a Peterson Church Warden. My cousin gave me this a little while ago. This was my uncle's. It's a Prince, and I think he might have actually picked it up in Ireland. Uncle Dan worked for the State Department, and he was an industrial engineer, and he traveled a whole lot throughout the world, inspecting embassies and consulates and things like that. And so he was able to pick up a lot of stuff through his travels, Cuban cigars, whiskeys that you couldn't get in America, things like that. But he picked these up, and he had two of them. Zach kept one of them and gave me this one. And I remember at Christmas this year, every year we've gone to his house for Christmas with my mom's side of the family. She also has a younger sister, but we would all go over there. But he pulled me aside and went into the I guess a spare bedroom that he kind of used as storage for a lot of this kind of stuff, and showed me these pipes. He said, "Look what I got," and he was kind of excited about them, and I was a little jealous and drooling over them a little bit there. Beautiful pipes, and so unfortunately, under the circumstances, I got this pipe. I'd much rather have Uncle Dan sitting around smoking this right now, of course, but this is some tobacco of his that my cousin gave me maybe a month ago. Match my Mixture 965. He said that 965 was his favorite tobacco. I also have a couple other bits of tobacco. And another pipe. I didn't do a video or anything smoking this one, but it's a Pipa Croce. I smoked this. I smoked this the day that I got the tobaccos and stuff. My dad, cousin, and I went to our cabin at Capon, and we're working on the roof, and so I smoked that to remember him, because they'd done some other work on the roof that I hadn't been there, but initially it was Dad, Uncle Dan, and me on the roof. Zach got the materials through his work, and we were bumbling around trying to figure that stuff out, putting it down this membrane and using this ridiculously sticky glue. But anyhow, I'm gonna get this lit and I'll be right back. Well, so far so good. This is I think this is going to be a great smoker. Tasty tobacco. Nice cool smoke. I haven't smoked a Church Warden in a long time. My cousin started smoking cigars, and I got him into Cubans, and then his dad picked it up, and I got my dad smoking cigars. And it's funny because Zach and I pretty much solely smoke Cubans if we're smoking cigars. And Dad and Uncle Dan smoked the gamut from $1 cigars up to not ridiculously expensive Cubans or anything, but you know, one of their favorite cigars were Andalusian Bulls. But we'd laugh, Zach and I would laugh anytime we'd like a 3-day weekend, Memorial Day, things like that, and go to Capon. And they'd smoke a 7x70 cigar in the time it took us to smoke Petite Coronas. And we'd laugh and say, how can you even taste that? You're just burning the tobacco as quick as you can. It's got to taste awful. I'm not sure when Uncle Dan got into whiskey and beer, but he did some homebrew there for a little bit. But Dad didn't drink from the time I was pretty small, 2 or 3, up until I was old enough to drink, really. But he and Uncle Dan started getting into whiskey real big. And so they'd always exchange bottles and, get stuff the other one couldn't and trade them and talk about them. And I remember being at the beach maybe 8 years ago or something. 7 years ago, something along those lines. And them sitting there drinking and talking about nosing it and all this stuff. And of course I wasn't really into liquor back then. I enjoyed liquor, but I wasn't really deep into it. Not that I really am now, but we were kind of sitting there laughing because they'd be talking about the nose and how phenomenal it was, and they used the word phenomenal so many times, it was pretty funny. But I have great memories, now of hanging out with him and Dad and usually Zach, having cigars and whiskey and BS, and we talked about politics a lot. That was always fun. And I look back last May, before my first backpacking trip in probably 16, 17 years. I went up to Washington, PA, and met Dad and Uncle Dan at the hotel. And we drove into Pittsburgh, into PPG Paints Arena. And we saw The Who, and I think that's about the best concert I've ever attended. I had just started on the 1st of that month the low carb diet. I just started it on the 1st of that month, the low carb diet, so I ended up cheating a little bit, had a beer, and then I think I had some Makers, but because we got there early and we're waiting for the concert to begin. Just hanging out BSing. Dad, Mom and Dad and Uncle Dan and Aunt Diane had gone to a concert to The Who over near DC earlier that year, and I think Zach was there too. And then the four of them went again later on. Can't remember where, but I think they said that the one that we went to was the best. But that was a good time. Uncle Dan had always had encyclopedic knowledge about so many subjects. I don't know where he kept all that stuff, but he could tell you, personnel in the band and when albums came out and tours and stuff like that. And you could tell he was in his element at that concert. Got out of there and went to a Denny's on the way back to the hotel. But anyway, we got back to the hotel too late to have a cigar or a pipe or anything. Next morning we got up and all drove down to Morgantown. Uncle Dan had picked my dad up on the way out, so I drove Dad, and then my mom was in Morgantown, so she was giving him a ride back. Went and visited with my sisters a bit, and then got some pulled pork, went to Kroger there, and picked up some hot dogs. It was Friday, and that, like I say, I was on my way to Dolly Sods for my first backpacking trip in years, and then met Zach there. So we were talking about the concert and everything. And then last November, Mannheim Steamroller came to town, and I was really excited. I grew up listening to Mannheim Steamroller all the time. It's about my favorite Christmas music. So I asked Mom and Dad and Dan and Diane if they wanted to go, and got tickets for the 6 of us, and we went. I think it was the Thursday before deer season, so I took that Friday off to go up to the farm as I always do. But they came down, and we had dinner at a nice restaurant, the Tidewater in the mall in Charleston, and then walked over to the Municipal Auditorium to see Mannheim Steamroller. So that was cool, being there with them. But Pop, my mom's dad, was a Methodist minister, and he was basically a problem solver. I don't know, I don't know what the term would be, but essentially if a church was having problems, or there was turnover or friction in the church throughout West Virginia, he'd move to the community and get the church back on its feet. Spend 3 or 4 years at a place or more. So Mom and Uncle Dan and Aunt Mary all grew up moving around West Virginia a good bit, and so Uncle Dan would talk about some of the stories there, living throughout West Virginia. And he went undergrad, he went to West Virginia Wesleyan in Buchanan, met my aunt there. She's from Maryland. He went to grad school and at WVU, but he grew up like me, a diehard West Virginia fan, West Virginia University fan. So another bunch of memories I have of Uncle Dan come from West Virginia games. He and my aunt, and then my parents got season tickets for a number of years. They lived all around. They lived in California, Georgia. The majority of my life, I recall them living in over around Baltimore. Whenever all the kids had graduated high school, Uncle Dan and Diane moved back to West Virginia, moved to the Eastern Panhandle. he had such a long commute into Rosslyn or Foggy Bottom or something like that. I don't know. One of the outposts of the swamp. But then my cousin Zach and his twin brother Matt went to WVU. And Amanda, their older sister, who we've been hiking with this year, she was at UNC Greensboro. And she and Matt were both music majors, and so he'd drive down all the time to North Carolina and drive out to Morgantown a lot for performances. But they got the season tickets around that time. And this was right at the end of when I was in college, because I'm about 5 years older than Matt and Zach. But then there would be times when, Mom wouldn't go to the game or Aunt Diane wouldn't go or something like that, so we'd get tickets, and occasionally they'd, Shane and I would get to go. But it was always fun going out there, hanging out. I think my parents have been retired about 4 or 5 years. And since then, they've gone to the beach 2 to 3 times a year with them, and they've been going to the beach together for at least 7 or 8 years, I guess. But they upped the number of times they would go. And I think we went twice with them, because we've had some 2-3 year droughts of no beach. So that would always be a fun week. But anyway, I just wanted to reminisce a little, make this tribute video, share some of my memories of Uncle Dan. He was a committed Christian, so I know where he's at. So I don't feel sorry for him. He's a lot better off than he was, obviously, but I feel sorry for those of us still here that miss him. And it's still a little hard to believe sometimes that he's gone. But his memory will live on. He's impacted a lot of lives. So here's to you, Uncle Dan.